Hey, it's Christian Yordanov. Thanks for tuning back in to the show. I just thought I'd record something because it's been a while. I've just been super busy working on my next book on fasting and why it's a terrible idea. So that takes a lot of time, and I'm getting a lot of through my research a ton of stuff to make content with, but I have to buckle down and sort of get it done ASAP because these making content is distracting and it just would take longer. So as soon as the book is ready and I've kind of started getting it ready for publishing, I'm going to start pumping out more content on my findings. You will love it. In the meantime, I thought I'd share a client story of a recent client that she signed up with me about, I guess 6 weeks ago at this point or so. So just so you know, we're still open for business. If you need help, no better time than now. Try to book a call with me if you can. You know how to do that. Go to the link below, livelongerformula.com. If you sign up to that free masterclass, you will see the way to book a call. If where there's a will, there's a way, as they say. So I thought I'd share this story of this client of mine, Heather. It's just such an amazing story of what can happen even in a few weeks on when someone just gets a plan and has a little bit of support to resolve their health challenges. But before I do that, I just want to share something else that one of my clients, Victor, uh, he shared with me just now, a few minutes ago, before I was sitting down to record this. He basically said that he just fired his gastrointestinal doctor today. He said he's done. So I asked him. Of course, this is through his own choice. I never said do that. I never tell people what to do in terms of like the care they're getting. And I always tell people, I'm not a substitute for medical advice or the care of your doctor. Always check everything with your doctor, all that good stuff. So this was something that he decided to do on his own. So I asked him, why, what did you say? Like, how did he take it? And of course, I asked for permission to share this communication between the two of us. So he just said to his gastrointestinal doctor, yeah, I just told him I'm done with the big pharma model because they're not doing anything to really help. It's just test after test, drug after drug, and I'm done with being a test subject. Said big pharma isn't interested in finding a cure. They only want lifelong customers. And apparently his doctor took offense to that because he said that if he could cure me tomorrow, he would, which I think he would. He's a good dude, just subscribing to the wrong medicine. So that's the thing about a lot of these doctors is, of course they would cure you. They would cure you in a heartbeat if they could. They just haven't been taught how to truly help their patients resolve their health problems. They've only been taught diagnose, give drugs, prescribe surgery, do invasive tests that really don't really help, and that's really about it. If all else fails, cut things out of people. Like I just had another client in Canada over the last month. He has 8 inches of large intestine because they removed it. And I've had other people that where they resection people. They take small intestine out. They kind of chop the parts of the stomach out and sew them back together. Countless people with gallbladder removals, which is completely avoidable. So that's his reasons. Because just to share a little bit of his story. So this is the testimonial he's written for me on the website. So Victor's story is he's lived with digestive issues since he was 18 years old. He's about 40 now, 43. uh so he's had digestive problems for like more than 20 years. He went to a GI doctor at around the age of 35, 36. So 18 years later, after all this. So he was living with these gastrointestinal problems, digestive problems, for a long time. Went to the doctor, got the diagnosis of ulcerative colitis and PCS. Inflammation was this is a quote: inflammation was ruining my daily life, including my sleep schedule. I have been on several medications without much success. And then he said, prior to working with Christian, I had done some research regarding eating well and supplements. Shortly after the initial call with Christian, we got results back from testing. Turns out the information I found and I had been practicing was not helping. Working with Christian, we were able to determine what foods I needed to eat as well as what supplements I needed to help repair my body. And he went from widespread dysplasia to no dysplasia in the colon. I'm sleeping better than I can ever remember. I have more energy than I did in my early 30s, now 43. And he said the one decision to work with Christian has changed my life dramatically in a few short months. Being able to have Christian's expertise to help continually dial in the diet and supplements is invaluable. No clue where I would be without Christian. And of course, you know, I thanked him that I could share sort of what he said to his doctor today. And he said, no, thank you. It's because of you and your program that I feel confident in walking away and feeling okay with my decision, walking away from the doctor, and of course, for me, it's just an honor to be a part of his, of course, health journey and all the other clients. And of course, not the thing is, not everybody will respond as well as you'll see in a minute with Heather's sort of the first 5 weeks on the program. Not everybody responds as quickly and as favorably because some of us are older. Some of us have had these health challenges for decades. And, if you're 60 and you've had these problems for like 30 years, of course, the journey back to health will be a little bit slower and more meandering. But it's just, I feel like sharing some of these successes is an amazing thing, especially with people with gastrointestinal stuff, because like even like my mom, like they're like colonoscopies and gastroscopies and endoscopies and just shoving things up your ass and down your throat and like biopsies and cutting things out of you. I mean, scans that are like radiation or and also clients that get these MRIs where they inject you with like literally toxic metals like gadolinium. I mean, this is not this is not right. Like, I mean, the people are truly being harmed like on a mass scale without, at least if there was some kind of resolution they would get. And oftentimes they can't even help them get their symptoms under control. I've had folks with inflammatory bowel disease like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, where within days to like a couple of weeks, they get serious improvement, like from like loose stools, pooping 5 times a day, to like feeling like they're constipated because they're only pooping twice a day, if you know what I mean, which is of course not really constipated, right? So that's kind of, I just wanted to crowbar this because it's just amazing, again, to help people free themselves from being, I suppose, at the mercy of a system that is not really, first of all, it's not designed to help people truly like heal themselves and go off and kind of live their life. It's designed to kind of ensnare you and just monetize you for life, ideally. And the problem is with some of these treatments, you are going to develop other problems because of them. And then, of course, because the underlying issues that you went to them for are not getting resolved, those are allowed to continue festering. So it's a multi-pronged problem, right? Which is very easily solvable with the basic pillars or fun I suppose the pillars of health, as I kind of talk about sometimes, which is diet, supplementation, stress reduction, hormone balancing, gut health, detox and liver support. And then, of course, sleep is important, stress is important. And then some people also need help with their breathing. I've seen that. I guess maybe 5% of people have a fairly serious breathing issue, but there's a good subset of people that could do with a little bit of improvement, just even like a 5% improvement in how we breathe. Imagine how, because you do this on a daily basis nonstop, you imagine like a 5% improvement in that, what that could do for your health over the course of decades and a lifetime. So anyway, that's, I just wanted to crowbar that part in. But what I was initially intending on talking about today is Heather, who came to me from uh, World Alternative Media, Josh Sigurdsson's channel. She came to me. It's been about 6 months now that she's on the program, and she's a nurse. Like busy, hardworking. Um, and I'll just read you what, because I asked her, because she's had such an amazing improvement over even the first couple of weeks on the program, I just kind of asked her, "Do you mind just like jotting this down? I want to use it on the website." Uh, it it's hard. It's hard getting uh, testimonials. It's hard asking for them. So I've been trying more over the last year to ask more and kind of follow up when people kind of, I'm gonna do that, and then it doesn't happen. So I just kind of been, not that I'm pushing people or anything, but just it's hard enough doing this business, doing all parts of the business on my own. So any help I can get, like a book review, podcast review, or a testimonial we can use on social on the website, just really helpful. So I've been trying to ask without shame a little bit more lately. So anyway, I'll just read her what she wrote. She gave that to me this week. So she says, Heather in Michigan says, I am incredibly grateful for Christian and his Live Longer program. I had been suffering from severe gastrointestinal issues for 5+ years. It seemed that no matter what I ate, I ended up experiencing bloating, cramping, and diarrhea. I just couldn't figure out what was causing it. Christian gives you a personalized eating and supplement program based on your issues and lab results. I followed his recommendations right from day one, and within a few days, I no longer had any bloating or pain after eating. That's within a few days. I had also been living with horrible fatigue. I felt like I was barely getting through the workday and had no energy for anything else. After about a week of following the program, I came home from work and I realized I didn't feel the need to immediately lie down and rest on the couch. I actually still had some energy, and that has improved every day since. I had previously been diagnosed with premenstrual dysphoric disorder a few years ago. So PMDD, this is a much more severe version of PMS, premenstrual syndrome. This is where I have clients with this PMDD where they're like borderline freaking suicidal or homicidal. Like this is probably one of the worst sort of things that a woman could experience in terms of a health challenge. Just horrific depression, debilitating, and again, like it drives. I've talked to multiple women where they were literally considering taking their own. It's insane, like how horrific this is, because you're dealing with estrogen, cortisol, serotonin. Obviously, this sort of milieu, this mix of stress hormones, all sort of going crazy at the same time. It's horrific. At the same time, you have like physical symptoms with the PMS or the premenstrual sort of pain and discomfort. So it's pretty horrific. So I had been previously diagnosed with premenstrual dysphoric disorder a few years ago. The treatment my primary care physician had given me was not optimal and became something I wasn't willing to take. And a lot of the time, they would try to put women on birth control to stop their period, and or SSRIs, antidepressants, this should be in air quotes, antidepressants. But yeah, so this is like really freaking adding insult to injury, and injury to injury, even doing that. That's beside the point. So the week before my period was incredibly difficult for me. I struggled with physical discomfort, agitation, and feelings of severe hopelessness. Christian's program also addresses hormone balancing. I followed the recommendations he gave me, and after a few weeks, I started noticing that I felt a little calmer throughout my day. When I had my first period after starting the program, it caught me by surprise. I had no physical pain or feelings of deep sadness and hopelessness in the days preceding it. I couldn't believe it. I have only been following this program for 5 weeks, and almost every day I see improvements. I have not felt this great in years. I can't wait to see how much healthier I can feel. Thank you, Christian. So that's Heather, Michigan, amazing lady. And I'll tell you, I just saw her now. It's Wednesday, so I think I spoke to her last on Sunday, about 3 days ago, and she looked different to me. Now it could have been the lighting, blah blah blah, all that stuff, but she looked like she had this big wide smile on her face the entire time on the call. On our, we do three support calls during the week with my clients, so it's really one of the best parts of my week is interacting with clients live. Um, and she's just like happy, and the thing about the PMDD, like if you're if you're a woman and your period catches you by surprise, it's an amazing sign, because even like with women that are not really struggling with PMS much, or PMDD especially, they still feel the period onset, right? The breasts might sort of swell, and discomfort, tummy aches, whatever. Like, I mean, there's a bunch of different symptoms women can feel, like sweats, agitation, frustration. But with PMDD, it can be a horrific time. That kind of the week before the period, and then the period itself might be pretty horrible, and then after that you have like a week or two of respite. I don't know how to pronounce that word. So to for your period to catch you by surprise, it means a lot of good things. And this is how I know with my wife, when we were onto something with this stuff, is she never had like serious, PMS or anything. But she would, like, I would hear her talk about, my period's coming on, I feel uncomfortable, blah blah blah. This was years ago. And over the last few years, uh, I would kind of always know when her period is coming up, because she'd be a little bit more irritable and agitated, and my shitty dad jokes wouldn't land as well. And like when I kind of tease and stuff, it would be more. It wouldn't be taken the same way. She wouldn't laugh as much when as opposed to during other times. But then over time, I stopped being able to tell that she because I'm not like counting or anything. I mean, I used to sort of track it a little bit, like, but you have when you have a kid, you have other things you're thinking about and stuff like that. But anyway, so now it it in the last 3 years, especially, it kind of would catch me by surprise. She just tell me, "Oh, my period started." I'm like, "Oh, I had no idea." That's a good thing. And but occasionally, like especially when like things are more stressful, travel, etc., or when I'm away for a while, then it kind of creeps back up, and then I kind of hear her talking about it, or can feel her being a bit more frustrated. So these things do ebb and flow for a person. But even getting it to the point for a woman where it's like, oh, a bit of discomfort, I know a period's coming, but you're not like literally telling yourself, I don't hit this person, that they're a family member, I love them, because you're so agitated and irritated and irritable, and you have so much pain that's causing that as well. And then also, again, like I said, the feelings of severe hopelessness and depression. I mean, like, just to get a person away from that is an incredible thing to be able to do. And then in terms of what's interesting is with the gut stuff, um, because she's a nurse, busy days, has to kind of eat foods that are portable, compact, quick to prepare, or little preparation required during work. Some of those foods on paper, and for many other people, would have been completely fine. So they would actually be in my diet guidelines, some of those foods. But just looking at the kind of things she ate, I just gave her ideas on, of course, what to immediately exclude that could be exacerbating things, but also what to replace some of those foods, because you got to eat something at the end of the day, and you can't necessarily replace like a meal during your work time with that was quick, easy, portable, something that's ready to go, with like, you can't like suddenly just start cooking and bringing your own lunch to work, which is the longer term solution, of course. But in the meantime, I just gave her other ideas on foods that would be a hell of a lot less triggering. So the cool part that I really enjoyed is, before we even got any of the lab test results, she was already improving to the point where I'm like, okay, geez, wow, maybe we didn't need to do a stool test specifically here. But anyway, the food sensitivity test we do is very valuable, because everybody has at least a couple of foods that are more inflammatory than one would desire. So just removing those alone is very valuable. Usually it's a hell of a lot more than two, but I'm talking about the most inflammatory things, like the yellows and the reds. So removing those, super helpful. And then all the other stuff that's kind of middle of the road, let's say, in terms, not hyper inflammatory, but still a little bit on the higher end of the green. We create for every client a plan where you can exclude and reintroduce those over a 4-month period. And what that does is it further gives the gut a break, lowers, first of all, it lowers the triggers hitting the gut, which means the immune system is getting less triggered, which means the immune system cells are producing less inflammation, which then means less sort of energy wasted on making inflammation, less collateral damage caused by the inflammation and symptoms associated with it, which many people, it manifests differently for different people, and then less energy nutrients expended to repair and deal with that damage. So you're basically diverting a lot of energy and resources in the body from making and repairing inflammation and its damage to then using it for kind of other healing, repair, regeneration, and just regular sort of functioning of the tissues and the cells. So that's a really good thing. You might not necessarily feel it immediately, but I always talk about how many little improvements can we stack in a person's favor. And with the program the way it's designed now, it's a good 2-3 dozen things that even if it's 0.5%, 1% of an improvement, when you stack like 3 dozen things in someone's favor, and whilst removing things that are detracting from health, we're creating a huge impact on the health, of course, in the near term, but also importantly in the long term. Because that's another thing that I'm thinking about more with the fasting book now that I'm writing it, is a lot of like not just people but practitioners is they're looking for quick fixes and quick symptomatic relief. So fasting can provide, like someone like her, for example, and Victor, and many other gut clients, yeah, they would probably feel relief with a fast or intermittent fasting or a 5-day fast or whatever. But it doesn't address the underlying problems. So it's nothing more than an allopathic symptom suppressing tool. It's not a solution. It's a symptom sort of lowering uh, quick fix. So that's kind of, so what I'm thinking about is, yeah, of course we want to get we don't want these symptoms, of course we want to get rid of them ASAP, of course, but are we also doing things that are sustainable and for the long term will support the person's health, their metabolism, their hormones, their longevity, all that good stuff? If we're not, then we're not truly helping them. We are, getting the job done, but again, it's nothing better than what an allopathic practitioner does, and we know that system is not very effective because people, unless you address the things, the lifestyle, dietary, and other stress, etc., unless you identify and address those things that contributed to the downstream problem, you're not really going to create an environment where those symptoms go away and they stay away. That's kind of how I've been thinking about it. So that's the thing, and so what I was kind of getting at is, um, the before we even got the lab tests, a lot of the benefits uh, had already happened for Heather, which is amazing. And I've had lots of clients where we've done no lab testing, we got benefits through diet, supplementation, all the other stuff, hormones, sleep, stress. It's all intertwined, gut stuff, the detox stuff. But then what was interesting, I just wanted to kind of highlight here is, so we did 3 tests with her: food sensitivity, the urine test that I love. That one always fine. We found a bunch of stuff there, of course, because when you're dealing with gastrointestinal problems, PMDD and fatigue, it's clear that there's imbalances in the deeper in the body causing that. So with the urine test, we found a lot of stuff to optimize, of course, with detox, with deficiencies, minerals, vitamins, neurotransmitters, all that, oxidative stress, all that good stuff. But what was interesting is her stool test, which is, that's like a test I don't run very often, mostly like with gut clients. But even then, we don't always run it because we want to save money on labs. The core 2 tests are the food sensitivity test and uh the urine test, which gives us 100 plus markers. So that's a good investment. Each one of those like $500 or so. So that it's a really good investment. Now the stool test, we do run it, especially when a problem has been going on for like a gastrointestinal problem has been going on for like 5+ years, etc., 20 years. Yeah, it makes sense to see what's going on in the gut, because we don't just get like bacterial markers, we get digestive health, inflammation, immune activation markers. But what was interesting in this case is that her microbiome, they didn't the test is very sensitive. It's a quantitative PCR test, so it's actually very sensitive. They do quantify the amount of organisms, but they found no overt pathogens, no inflammatory bacteria. No, I mean, there was some that get detected, but none were in like the red, the higher, the above the reference range. So, but like there was nothing quote unquote red, nothing signaling. Like with the regular microbiome, there wasn't. There was some stuff like some of the bacteria were a bit low, but it was nothing like really really bad. So it was clear that she doesn't really have the so-called inflammatory dysbiosis. It was more the predominantly just kind of certain factors in the diet and the way they were being combined, some of those foods. So removing some foods, replacing foods that were okay, just it wasn't the right time for them, that were kind of contributing to the issues, and then adding more of the foods that I recommend to clients. So we're just kind of tweaking the diet, and we did find some stuff around. We can actually catch pancreatic insufficiency, which that in and of itself can cause digestive issues, right? But that's not inflammatory dysbiosis. That's more insufficiency dysbiosis, as it's kind of termed. So that's where we want to replace some of that for a while, as we get the diet, the everything, the liver functioning better. But it was just in the point here I'm trying to make is it was interesting that she didn't really have dysbiosis in the gut, although every sign and symptom that she was experiencing was screaming this person has severe dysbiosis. The bloating, the cramping, the diarrhea, it just signals something is really wrong. You must have dysbiosis. But what I've noticed with the stool tests, when we do run them, is they're quite it's quite rare to see like very serious dysbiosis on a stool test with many of my clients. It does happen once in a while, but a lot of the time, that's why, and this is again why I don't run the stool test with every person, even if they're a gut or autoimmune client, just to save that money on other stuff, food, supplements, things like that. Um, but it just seems like a lot of people's digestive problems, they really are about the diet, what they're eating, what they're not eating, and then of course their ability to digest. So what I've noticed quite a lot is this marker for pancreatic insufficiency. That is a pretty common finding. I'd say 1 in 3 of the stool tests I run, that marker is an optimal or is in pretty rough shape, which kind of there's a lot of reasons why that can happen in the modern world. But again, it screams to the fact that it's not necessary that the microbiota is out of balance, or there's parasites or dysbiosis or whatever. It's just the way most people eat is suboptimal. And then of course the fact that we do the food sensitivity on top of my diet guidelines is really helpful, because even if you eat, like, there's really good foods, like even like for example with some clients, beef, it's very rare, I will say, but like I have seen beef where you can't eat beef because it's freaking one of the most inflammatory things right now for your immune system. So knowing what's more inflammatory or less inflammatory for a specific person, and then kind of juxtaposing that on top of the diet guidelines, gives us that extra layer of optimization. Now, this is only available to US clients, or yeah, of course anyone that can go to the US. You can do the test, but you need to be there to because you need to get a blood draw, has to be shipped to the lab. There's only one lab that does this type of test, so they have to get it on the same day, because then they expose the blood to the various foods and chemicals and their caffeine, MSG, whatever, a bunch of stuff. So it's a little bit logistically more complex than most of the other stuff, which clients just do at home. Collect some poop or collect some urine, and the FedEx or whatever, they come pick it up. But that one is a little bit more, I suppose, logistically complex. Not much, but I really think it's really worth it, because again, sometimes you just had no. I had one lady. She's still with me, second year now, actually coming up to the end of second year. And for her, for whatever reason, the lemon was off the freaking charts, off the freaking charts. And then we tested her again with a food sensitivity test, like I guess a year later or 6 months later. It was still high, not off the charts anymore, still very high. And then we just did a third food sensitivity test. So we've done three tests in the span of about 2 years, and only now is it kind of approaching. It's still high, but it's like now it went from like off the charts red to, I believe now it's in the yellow range. So eventually, and the thing is, the crappy thing is she loves lemons, so it's kind of sucky. But that's the other thing. Like it could be the thing one of your the things you love the most, or you think is the highest quality food in your diet. For example, eggs, or uh, um, milk, or cheese, or something like that. That is high nutrient density and is a good food, and you're buying it clean and organic and pastured and grass fed and whatever else. It's just for you right now, for your immune system right now, for whatever reason. There's many reasons why, but your immune system is creating more inflammation in response to, quote unquote, it's seeing that food in your gut, if that makes sense. So but again, the what was amazing is we got a lot. It's like the 80/20 rule, if you can think of it that way. We got almost, I would say, 80% of the results with 20% of the time and the effort, because the program is 6 months long, and she's in there five weeks when she kind of wrote this, I suppose a few days ago. But it feels like we've gotten, for 20% of the time and effort, we've already gotten 80% of the results. So it's amazing when this stuff happens. Now, at the same time, I do have clients that are, she's in her 30s, late 30s. So I have clients that are older, and they're obviously, not everybody will respond this well, this favorably. But on the other hand, she followed everything to the letter from day one. That's the other thing. Some people have more capacity to do that, or more motivation to do that, especially when you're suffering a lot, the way she was suffering with the gut stuff. Especially imagine at work having to like bloating, cramping, diarrhea, and like you're holding it in, and you have to deal with patients, and you're working. You have to be nice, and you have to be like civil and stuff like that. Like, oh my god, like it must be excruciating, right? So I suppose a person like that is ready to just do whatever has to be done. So there is that sort of aspect as well. But then that's not to say that someone that's 30 years older or 20 years older, they might do everything to the letter just as well. It just, they might have to have they might be unraveling a much bigger ball of yarn that has been sort of congealing into this set of problems for a decade more or 2 decades more, which is very common, right? So everybody's results will vary, and some people don't do enough, don't do as much as they should, and that also is a factor. So I'm not saying I guarantee these results. I never guarantee anybody results. I only guarantee I will do the best I can for you, but you are your guarantee. You have to do the work. And I've had people that struggled for a long time, and then eventually they resolved the stuff. For example, just out of memory, I had one lady with me. She was also with me 2 years, and she had more IBS type stuff, again, pain, bloating, severe fatigue, depression. She was vegan for like 5 years. And she had a bunch of stuff going on, hypothyroidism. Her TSH marker, one time that she measured it, it was so high, it was literally off the chart, to the point where that's when I learned that there is an upper limit to how high of a TSH the lab can measure, at least that lab. So after 150, they don't report higher, right? So we didn't even know that there's like a maximum amount beyond which they can't quantify the damn thing. It was that high, so high that my first fear was, man, this could be like a freaking pituitary tumor that's secreting TSH. It is possible. So I'm like, you better get this retested ASAP. And anyway, it's a bit of a long story, but anyway, so she was struggling, fatigue, sleep problems, and uh A year later, maybe a little bit more than a year later, everything improved. She changed. Oh, she changed job. She went from a very stressful job to a less stressful sitting down job instead of running around job. So a lot of stuff started improving, and then she got pregnant. That was her one of her intentions, one of her goals after resolving all these problems, to have a baby. And she got pregnant, and not only did she get pregnant and have a healthy home birth at home, but she did not even go to the, at least that's what she told me, she did not even go for a single scan. She didn't even have a single scan. You know how they do the ultrasounds and all the stuff, you see the baby, you get a video nowadays, all that stuff. She didn't even go for a single scan. Fearless, you know, in her health and her ability to bear a healthy child without any intervention. Now, I don't. We, me and my wife, we didn't have that sort of set of cojones to do that. We got scans and all that stuff. Of course, we did a home birth. We had a doula and a midwife. We did all that stuff. Like we didn't want any of the bullshit that you get with the conventional system. um but even me and my wife were like, damn, no, I need to do at least a couple of scans. But so it's amazing that even someone that can be in such rough shape, where every meal is causing pain and headaches and suffering and writhing in pain, and like people ready to give up, and just horrific quality of life, and depression and fatigue and sleep issues at the same time. So to be able to resolve that, even though it takes longer, it's there was, like sometimes say, if there's a will, there's a way. If it's a priority for a person, they will figure it out, as long as they have the right help and support. And that's what I think is a big problem right now, is there's a lot of services out there. There's a lot of stuff you can do. You can get a dietitian, you can get a fitness coach, you can get lab tests galore, you can get your microbiome tested, you can get your genome sequenced, you can do all of this biohacking stuff, you can spend thousands and tens of thousands on equipment and stuff, but it's not really, for many people, it's not getting them the results. So that's what I've been working really hard over the last few years, creating something that we don't focus on the sort of the more impressive stuff like hyperbaric stuff and peptides and all that stuff. We just focus on the basic fundamentals. And when you focus on the basic fundamentals, that's what will get you 80 to 95% there. You don't have to have a hyperbaric chamber, you don't have to even have a sauna, you certainly don't need to have a ice bath or cold plunge stuff. You can get away without a red light therapy unit. You don't have to get peptides. You don't have to spend uh $100 per supplement bottle for each one of your supplements. You can use cheap things that are like $8, $10, $15 for a month to supply, um for the most part. And you can get a lot of these things, a lot of these health issues resolved with just the basic fundamentals of health, which again are diet, supplementation, which is essential in the modern world, uh, focusing on gut health, liver health, detox, which they're interlinked, and then of course stress, hormones, and sleep. Those are also interlinked, and then breathing, which can underpin all of these processes in for better or for worse, right? So just focusing on those things is enough, again, to get most people uh 80 to 95% there. Now there are some cases with like nasty sort of Lyme disease, and just some really stuff that's, let's say, iatrogenic, if you know what I mean, so induced by some other treatment. Now in those cases, it can get a bit more complex, and there we have to manage expectations. But like something that has occurred organically over just like not knowing how to take care of one's health, or not prioritizing one's health for a long time, or just not knowing what to do for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, even 20 years, things like that. There's always solutions. I remember another lady, she was 77 when she joined the program. I can't remember, was it last year or the year before at this point, to be honest. But at 77, like within weeks, just the stuff that happened with her gut, and she lost like 10 centimeters or 4 inches off her waistline. She had this emphysema cough type thing where she couldn't even string a sentence together without going to a coughing fit. And I was like, almost, I was reticent. Should I even take her on as a client? I'm like, I'm not sure what we can do at her age. But when she got all these amazing results, and she's like, oh, I'm back to work. I now have energy. I'm not like couch bound most of the day, and I can sing when I'm washing the dishes now. And she actually went traveling with one of her childhood friends, or younger life friends. They went traveling to Portugal. So like when I saw that happen with her, that was for me, it cleared the mental block for me, or a limiting belief that there's some, after about 60, 65, you kind of go past the zone of no return, and it's like, oh, it's just too much work. Because before that I had a couple of clients that I was like, man, it's just too hard, it's too slow. But when I saw that, that's when I realized, you know what, the human body, it's programmed in our cells to know what to do if the right conditions are created, which means, again, diet, supplementation, nutrients, all the pillars of health I mentioned, and also removing things that are working against us, which could be, oh, so many things, from light and EMFs, and just eating crappy foods to eating foods that are inflammatory. uh, I mean, toxic exposures. There's so many things. Stress, just sleep hygiene. There's so many things we can improve. So getting the things out of the way that are getting in the way, then adding the nourishing things and the supplements, and using strategic supplementation. Uh, uh, that can be a game changer for people, right? So that really showed me that doesn't matter how old someone is. So now when someone books a call with me, that is on the older end, like 75 plus, I don't think to myself, oh, should I just cancel this call and say, look, I can't help you, you're too old, which obviously I wouldn't say in that way. I just say, you know what, that's, if they seem like they are ready to put in a little bit of work, and they're not just gonna waste my time and their time, I'm ready to talk to them, because I've seen what can happen, and sometimes very quickly. And also this lady that was 77, uh she she responded super fast to all the stuff, super fast. So it's not necessarily that if someone is older or has had health problems for a long time, and or both, it's not necessarily the case that it will take a long time to get results. It's, unfortunately, the problem is that we're so different in how we respond to things. Like, some people are more sensitive to supplements, or others are, more sensitive to, like, let's say, gut cleanses and things like that. So we're so different in terms of how we respond to things, that it's just very difficult to say. So you can have a young person take a long time to get their results. You can have an older person get results faster, and then the opposite. You can have someone that's, you know older, that could take them a long time. They have younger that can take them a short time. It really depends. It really, really depends. And that's kind of the challenging part. But it's also like, you know what makes us better practitioners is when we grapple with these challenges, and we think and we research and we try things, and we learn. That's what makes us practitioners, and better practitioners, I should say. And that allows us then to help our clients navigate things better and faster. So I do believe I have got better at that, and kind of learning from mistakes, which we all make mistakes, that nobody's perfect. But it's an amazing and enriching journey, because these are powerful tools. When you see this kind of change in people, you kind of like, man, this is so powerful. Like, of course I want to share it with the world, and I shouldn't I shouldn't be reticent about offering it to people, and kind of toot my own horn, because damn it, this is powerful stuff. We can change people's lives, sometimes within weeks and months. It's unbelievably amazing. Whereas you have people like my own mother. She had IBS for about almost 13 years. IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. pain, suffering, bloating, insomnia. And when I this was in 2019, when I the day I graduated as a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, which is what gave me access to lab tests. That same day, I had them send her a stool test, and I already had a suspicion what her issue was, and I thought it was H. pylori causing her stuff. And indeed, I was correct. So we did some H. pylori protocols and all that good stuff. And she went from like writhing in pain after every meal or having headaches to basically. So that was May 2019. Then when COVID hit in March, and she started eating raw garlic on an empty stomach, because that's like an old sort of remedy back in Eastern Europe. You eat garlic to not get viruses and whatever. So anyway, she went from like not being able to eat like a normal meal without pain and or headaches to being able to eat raw garlic on an empty freaking stomach in basically the course of 8 months. A little bit less, because it took time to get the lab work, the supplements, the protocols, to get her to actually do the stuff, which was like it's like about as hard as getting like a little, like my daughter dressed in the morning, getting her shoes on and stuff like that. It's like a big kid. So but I've seen that. So but in those 12, 13 years, she got no help. And it wasn't like she wasn't going to the doctor. She was going to the doctor a lot, different doctors, but she didn't get help. And I saw that everywhere, and I see that everywhere. People are not getting the help that they need, and they're seeking it out. It's a different story if it's a lot of guys that don't care about their health, they don't take care of themselves. It's a different story if you're not seeking the help. You're like, I've all these problems, gout and this and that, I don't care. um it's a different story. All right, that's your choice. You're free to make that choice. But when people are actively seeking help from the system and they're not getting it, I think that's an absolute travesty, because there's billions and billions pumped into this. A lot of it is taxpayer money. And then these doctors are spending 10 years of their freaking life, 10 of the best, healthiest years of their life, learning all these things. And then they're basically not more effective than doing nothing. And in many cases, they can actually cause problems and damage, and this iatrogenic sort of stuff that we know is a huge problem in that system. I'm not gonna go too deep on all this stuff, because I'm gonna try and post this on YouTube. But you know what I'm talking about, I'm sure. So I think I'll shut up here. 47 minutes. As you know, brevity is not my strong point. But yeah, thought I'd share some of the stuff, so I'm still here. Gonna have a lot more content in the next few months once I get this book ready, and then I think you will see some of the fasting stuff is really interesting. And then I'm looking forward to moving beyond the fasting again, because I've just been deep in the weeds, and it feels like I'm losing brain cells reading these studies on fasting. It's just the dumbest, like the dullest crap ever, reading about controlled starvation of humans and lab rats and mice and stuff. It just feels like, I hope it's worth it. I'm sure like at least some people will be convinced by my three-pronged argument that fasting is a terrible longevity strategy, a terrible weight loss strategy, and a terrible strategy in most cases to address chronic health problems. So I'm sure at least some people will be helped. So that's kind of keeping me going. And of course, a lot of supplements and nootropics and brain nutrients and stuff, and caffeine. A bit of caffeine is helping. So yeah, hopefully once that's done, I can expand into other areas again, because there's way more interesting things than freaking fasting research. I'll tell you that right now. Mind-numbingly boring. But yeah, so thanks for tuning into this episode, and I shall see you on the next one soon, hopefully.